Hi everybody, welcome to Wisdom Blogs, and this week I'm joined by Sophie Aubert, the most beautiful French woman that I know and my very, very good friend. And Sophie is the founder of a French business, and I'm going to pronounce this now, pour l'amour de soi, which means for the love of yourself. Did I pronounce that okay?
Very good.
So today we're going to talk about self-love and the wisdom of self-love. And we're coming up to Valentine's Day, and I just thought it'd be a really good topic for us to talk about and explore, because as Sophie, you're going to explain when you go into it, there's a very big difference, isn't there, between self-love and self-care, which is what most women would naturally think about. So yeah, welcome. It's so lovely to have you here, and please tell us all the good juicy stuff about self-love.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Really nice to be here and to speak English, because my business is in France, and it's nice to expand and maybe reach a more English-speaking community. So I'm really happy. Okay, so self-care and self-love. What's the difference? Well, in my view, like you say, a lot of women, or men, it's not just for women, self-love or self-care, they will look after themselves by taking care of their body, by going to the gym or going running, or they will go, maybe for women, to the beautician, to the hairdresser, all these things that make us feel good, and they're important. It's really important to keep doing that because we need self-care. But there's a difference in, spending because sometimes I speak to people and I say, oh yeah, I look after myself. I love myself. I go to the gym and I go, but sometimes the self-care will come from a place of not loving ourselves enough. So we think we have to get a better body, we have to get a better haircut, or lose a few pounds, or before we can be okay, or before we can feel like we can be loved that way. So usually the self-care is quite often comes from a place of lack of self-love. And it doesn't mean that, if you love yourself, you don't take care of yourself. Of course, I think it will probably be more natural to do it when you fully love yourself. But quite often it will come from a place of lack of self-esteem or lack of self-love, and there's a difference to me also in the attention you give yourself, the presence that you have with yourself. I used to teach yoga in a gym when I used to live in England, and I remember seeing people like on the treadmill watching TV or reading a book, and I was thinking, great, they are looking after their body, they're getting more muscle or whatever, but they're so not present to their body. They're just somewhere else. They're watching TV. So to me, it's like when you associate self-care with self-consciousness and with presence to what's actually happening, within myself. How am I feeling? How is that affecting me? Am I listening enough to my body? Am I respecting my body? Am I pushing it too far? Because quite often we are in a society that that puts forward the very much the doing, the action, and also the competition. And quite often we will. I see people who go for runs, and they time themselves, and they always have to do better and better. It's competition within yourself, with yourself, a lot of the time, and always achieving more, or pushing ourselves um, um, pushing ourselves more and more, and though that can be, fine in some ways, because, you push past your limitation, or so a lot of the times what I observe is that people are, they're attached to an outcome, they're attached to a result, so they have to get somewhere. They have, I mean, it's good to have intention and objectives, but if that's to the detriment of your health and your body and yourself, then that's not okay. So how can we, have intention of where we want to go in terms of our well-being, maybe, and at the same time being present enough and attentive enough, and patient enough with ourselves, so to know that we might reach our objective, but maybe we won't, and it's not really what's important. The importance is how you've enjoyed the journey, really, and how you've been able to listen to how it is for you. For me, it's like coming back to self-love is about first being present to yourself. It's really difficult to love yourself if you're not present with yourself. You're constantly in your head, in your mind, in your stories. And, I see that a lot of people are disconnected from their body. It's almost like the head and the body, and we tend to forget the body. But actually we live in this body, and how can we know ourselves if we're not present to our body? It's like we have to spend time with ourselves, but in presence. And to me, that's the difference of self-care and self-love. It's like self-care, you could be looking after yourself, but not really being present, not listening to, is that okay for me? Is that actually okay for me? If you go running and you push yourself, and the next day you're like, you can't walk because you've pushed yourself too far, then is that really self-love? Probably not. Probably it's like, you've looked after yourself by, doing some sports, but possibly if you'd been present enough, you would have maybe run a little bit less longer, or gone a bit more with your breath, and then it's more respectful. So how can we do both in a way? Self-care with self-love.
Because I can imagine as well that and I've had this as well, you're right, with the whole, if you're going running and you have a time that you want to maintain or you want to beat or improve, and I guess if you don't do that one day because you're not feeling really up for it, and actually maybe you should have had a rest on that day if you'd listened to your body, and you could go for a run and actually not perform as well as you wanted to, and then actually feel quite bad about it, and actually sort of berate yourself. And you're right, that's not coming from that place of self-love. And I love the way that you explained the difference between self-love and self-care, because I agree. It feels like when I would start doing self-care early on in my life, it still felt like an effort, so even though technically I was feeling I was looking after myself, it was still a chore. It was still a chore to have to go to the gym. It was still a chore to do all of those things. And you're right, it wasn't coming from that place of self-love, because if it comes, and I can feel when it comes from that place of self-love, then you let go of the outcome, and it is that you may choose to work with your breath, and it's really honoring your body and really taking care of your body regardless of that outcome. But I think it takes a while, doesn't it, for us to get there? And I suppose if we're not taught those skills, then the art of self-care feels like it is self-love in a way for lots of men and women, because they don't really know the difference. How do you work with people? How do you help people to tap into the self-love and help them to see the difference?
Well, I think the key is presence. it's like, you know, if you bring presence, then bring presence to yourself, then and for me it starts with getting people to connect to their body, yeah. And then being, in a way, it's the first step is coming here. Okay, I'm just being here with myself, and I'm connecting to what I'm feeling. You know, what is it like inside my body? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it tense? Is it maybe it's tense in one part and it's open in another part? So just kind of starting to turn your attention inward. And you know, it's more, for me, self-care is more doing, and self-love is more being. In a way. So it's like learning to be with yourself and to accept yourself as you are. And so maybe you observe that, oh, I'm tired, you know, it's just have no energy. And you know, and that is the first step. So is today the best time to go running if I'm just tired and no energy? Or maybe it would be more beneficial for me to do some gentle yoga, or you know, or whatever. But you know, the mind will say, oh no, but you haven't, you know, you haven't run for 2 days. No, you have to go running. But your body's saying, oh, but I'm really tired today, and I just need to lie down and, you know, do some relaxation. And so you can't know unless you turn your attention inward and you listen. And you listen, you know, how am I feeling? What am I sensing? What am I observing within? So is it, yeah. And then it's like, how can I just reconnect? For me, is also the breath is a great way to come back to presence, and also to just reconnect to life moving through us, the movement of life that, you know, makes the inhale, exhale, the expansion, releasing. And so when you reconnect to this movement, it's much easier to start to just accept yourself with how you are. You know, it's like connecting back to your essence, to your body's wisdom, in a way. It's like connecting back to the life that moves you and that makes you alive, you know, your aliveness. So connecting back to that, and then it's learning to accept yourself however you are feeling, and to let yourself be guided by, you know, those information that you get from your body. And then there's also that aspect of being connected to our heart, and in that space knowing that I can really welcome all parts of myself, and kind of almost so if I observe if I'm present enough, I might observe a part of me that's like judging me. Oh yeah, but you're lazy, you know, you're supposed to go running and you're not going, and you're just being lazy, and you're just procrastinating. You know, it could be all these voices in your head, the judging part. And then, you know, that judging part, there needs to be loved as well. It's like, how can I can just love that part that's feeling like thinking that I'm lazy, or I can't love the part that is, you know, maybe is lazy, because that could be that. I could actually be that I'm lazy today, and that's okay. So it's just observing, where is that coming from? How is that, you know, or maybe it's just a tension in your body, and you don't really know what it is, but it's like, and how can you just be one with that, become one with that, and love that tension within yourself? As some behind it, there's some resistance or some fear or some, you know, old stories, whatever that might be. You don't always need to know, but it's just welcoming all those parts of yourself, the ones that are comfortable, the ones that are uncomfortable, the ones that are really open, the ones that are really closed. And they all need, they can all be welcomed within our hearts. And, you know, which is a place of love.
Mm.
So self-love for me is being able to be in presence, observe what's there, and notice. Or even if you're like in a let's say you're in a discussion with someone and someone says something that makes you really react. It could be like anger, or it could be disappointment, or whatever, whatever reaction there might be. But well, you could judge yourself to react like that, or you could just love that part of you that's just reacting, in that moment. And so the process I take people through is just, it's always the same, but the more you go through it, the more you take that path of, inner introspection, but also love, just loving everything that you meet within. Eventually becomes just a easy thing, it becomes easier to do it. It becomes like a new way of being, changing our relationship to ourselves, and stop being so harsh and so judgmental, and being more compassionate, and being more it's like learning to love the inner child as well, learning to love those parts of us that are putting themselves in the way, that get in the way. And it doesn't, and I think once you're more loving to yourself and more compassionate and more accepting, then you will choose self-care. You will choose things that are, self-care options that are more in tune with how you feel, and who you are. Will be more authentic, maybe more respectful. Like for me, I started yoga. Well, I did gymnastics for a long time, which was very much exploiting the body to make it do, really, acrobatics or whatever. But so it's very much like a lot of training, a lot of pushing, forcing. And then eventually I did some other sports that was still like that, but bit less. And then when I discovered yoga and dance, I mean, at first I was doing yoga style that were quite still exploiting the body. I mean, in yoga you have that. Not every yoga, but some yogas is very much like you have to sculpt your body, you have to make it do really amazing postures, and and that's it can be attached to the result. And eventually, as I started teaching, I've been teaching for like 16 years, the more I went along, the further I went with it, the more I learned that it's not about how far you can go. It's not about how many postures, amazing postures you can do. It's about how present you are when you do them, and how aligned you are with the movement of life in your body, and how you can just listen to it. And actually, once you start to be in tune with that movement, like you say, it's less effort, it's just natural. And then it's like, it's pleasure, you do things for pleasure, not for obligation. Or
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds beautiful. And I guess it feels as well that, in order to get there, you've really got to slow down. And I remember hearing some years ago the quote of, slow down to the pace of nature. And it feels like you have to, in a way, to tap into that self-love, because it is really kind of pulling yourself back from all the things that grab your attention in life, to bring that awareness back into the body. And I'm curious, how do you teach this with your movement classes? Do you teach it with yoga or with dance? Or is it something that you teach separate? How do you use it? Because I know that, that you've always done a lot of work with the body and a lot of work with movement.
Yeah, well, I think this is what I teach. Whatever I do, really, for me, it's what's the most important is getting people back in connection with who they really are, and who they really are is this amazing wisdom that they can't connect to. They're not connected to themselves and their body, and there is an intelligence that is there for everything, you know, that connects everything to that organizes everything, you know, the whole kind of world, universe, I don't know, at all levels. And when you reconnect to that inner wisdom and the life that animates us, you know, we all animated by the same life. And to me, it's like, how can you listen enough that you're connected to that, and then you let that do its job through you. So it's learning to be, and knowing that my action will be inspired from that place, and not from the mind that says you should, you ought to, you have to, you know, which is still run by the mind. So it's like reconnecting to that, you know, life moving through. And then when you do a yoga posture, you know, if you're not attached to the outcome, and you can just be present and tune in to this movement, and eventually your whole posture is supported by this life moving through you, and then you have so much less effort to do to be in the posture, and so much more pleasure.
Yeah.
Because you're not forcing, you're not pushing, you're letting life, that pulsation of life move through you, and that is what animates you, and this is what supports you. And so, you know, if you have your arms like that, and you hold your arms mechanically and with just your kind of mind, it will quickly become heavy and hurt. But if you do it with, you know, by letting life move through, it's like I listened to, I don't know if you know this quantum physicist called Nassim Haramein.
Yes.
Yeah. I listened to him yesterday, and I loved that. He said that like everything is connected with everything, you know, we're all part of one matrix, or whatever, you know, you want to call it. And he says it's the easiest way to describe it is like a fluid. And it's like a fish in water. It won't know it's in water unless it's like sees maybe a little vortex in the water or something. But we're the same. This is like a fluid that connects all. And then when you let that fluid, that flux, how do you say it? That flow.
Yeah.
If you let that flow through you, then there's no effort. It will just, that is what moves you, rather than your head and your mind and your will. It's like learning to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it reminds me of Dr. Wayne Dyer when he talks about, you know, letting life live through you. So it is almost having that image in your mind, or visualizing your body as the instrument, and it's like it's being played by life, you know. And there is a different perspective, isn't it, that you have when you change from the pushing, and as if we are the fish not in water, and then realizing we're in the water, and the currents of the water can flow through us. I've been lucky enough to do some of your yoga classes in the past, and you do teach it from that very different space than not going into that, you know, the yoga pretzel poses, but, you know, really gently allowing the movement to come through the body, so you don't get the aches and pains from holding a position. Like you said, if you're just holding your arms out, you know, you're moving it in such a way that there's this energy flow going through you, and it does feel very, very different. So yeah, that's beautiful what you shared. And if there was, and I think you've given some really practical tips to people, but if there's one thing that you would like people to go away with, you know, what's that one piece of wisdom that you would share about self-love for people to always hold that in mind?
I'd say presence. Just spending some time with yourself in presence. And, you know, it could be meditating, but it could be it's just being fully there with yourself. So there's even a difference between being present. So if I'm going outdoors to nature, or I'm going for a walk in nature, I could be present to what's around me. Yeah. And that's not quite the same as being present to ourselves, but it's possible to do both. You can be walking in nature and being at the same time aware of what effect it has in your body and how it's moving you. And, you know, so there's a presence to ourselves. And for me, that's each day, if you can, you know, spend 5 minutes just turning your attention inward and getting to know yourself from inside, from within. And I always say it's like a lot of the time we are like a foreign country to ourselves, you know. And if you imagine that you want to get to know a country, well, you can read about it in books, you can go and listen to experts talking about this country, but unless you actually go and visit it and spend time in the country, you won't get to know its culture, you won't get to know its humor, you won't get to know this country. You know, the only way is to spend time in this country. So it's the same with us. If we want to really know ourselves and love ourselves, we have to spend some time connected with our inner world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it almost feels like we all need to tap into that, because it's not something that we're taught as children. It's not something that we're taught in school by our parents. And
society doesn't, you know, support that, you know, doesn't encourage that, you know. It's very much like doing all the time, and it's learning to be being with ourselves, you know.
And when you were speaking earlier, there was something that came to mind about accepting all those parts of ourselves, and also the parts of ourselves that society tells us that are welcome. So maybe that angry part of ourselves, maybe that resentful part of ourselves, maybe that jealous part of ourselves, all those parts of ourselves that are deemed to be bad or not good or not welcome. And there's something to be said, isn't it, about welcoming all of those aspects in. And you're absolutely right. I love the metaphor of the country. And I just think, you know, that feels such a beautiful way to end now on, you know, for people to have that image in their mind of the country and to take that internal trip inwards and really take the time to be able to kind of like explore themselves, you know, explore the rivers and the mountains and the valleys and the forests and
the
all
landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just feels like that's actually a really beautiful journey for people to go on and explore.
And in my experience, the more time you spend, you know, tuning in and getting to know yourself from within, the more you just like, wow, you know, you get to love yourself, because you're not connected to your stories that are telling you you're not this, you're not good enough, should be more like this, you know, all this stuff. But you're actually experiencing yourself really, like, you know, oh, I'm this feeling, or I'm this sensation, and I'm, you know, and eventually there's a real pleasure in being there.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy because we tend to run away from ourselves
Mm.
and we get distracted by so many things. And I'm, myself too, not always easy to, actually go and, okay, I'm going to be fully there with myself.
Mm.
And to me, that's the best self-love thing you can do, just
Mm.
being present, in presence with yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And just to end there, and for everybody watching, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope that's given you some really, some insights that will help you to reconnect to yourself and to start exploring the self-love and all those beautiful things that we can do to nurture ourselves. And given we're coming up to Valentine's Day, and the year that we've all had last year, and it's continuing with the pandemic, it feels like there's so much self-love that we need to tap into to help us navigate through these very choppy waters at the moment. So thank you all for listening, thank you for watching, and thank you, Sophie, for joining me today. It's been absolutely lovely connecting with you again, and seeing you. And yeah, please subscribe and share this with anybody who you think needs a little bit of self-love at the moment. And yeah, thanks for listening, and take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Lisa.